very much for inviting me to this solemn occasion to tell the story of my life. It's my life. Many other people have also survived and lived this type of life. But I was one of the lucky ones, and I will tell you my story. I was born in Yugoslavia, in a city called Sarajevo. Sarajevo was a beautiful city. It still is a beautiful city with mountains. It's modern. It has a lot of history. I will not go into that history. I'll just tell you my story. My parents' names were Jacob Alteratz, and my mother was Betty Alteratz. They were very modern people who had a very good life in Sarajevo. My parents owned their own house. My father had a business. They were well educated. They spoke 3 languages: Yugoslav, which is the Slavic language of the Yugoslav people. They spoke Spanish, and I asked my mother, why did everybody in our family speak Spanish, and my mother's and my father's side and my grandparents? And she said, because our family was originally from 300 years ago expelled from Spain during the Spanish Inquisition, and they kept the traditions. And they also spoke German, and the reason that they spoke German was because they went to school, into a private school. And the private schools in Yugoslavia until 1920 they were speaking in German, and the private schools were Catholic schools. I said, we were Jewish, why did you go to a Catholic school? They said because they wanted a better education. And the priests and the rabbis got along very well, and the children got along very well, and life was really very, very pleasant from what I understand in the city. And everything was fine until the March of 1941. That's when Germany invaded Yugoslavia, and the stormtroopers came to Sarajevo, our cities. It was a night that my mother said was frightening to see the stormtroopers marching into the city in a very bold and arrogant way. But they didn't know what to expect or what was going on, but within 3 or 4 days, they realized that the synagogues were destroyed and burned. And then they took the activists, the rabbis, the intellectuals, the professors, and they murdered 50 people in one day. They just shot them rounded them up, shot them in the streets, and then to be more arrogant, they hung the people up on trees to show their authority. It was really, really badly received. And the Jewish people just didn't know what to do. And then within another few days, they were told that every single Jew had to wear a yellow armband to prove that he was Jewish, could not walk on the streets unless he was wearing a yellow armband. That was all mainly to harass the people and to make the Jews feel inferior. Within a few days, they said no Jewish children were allowed to go to school. They closed all the businesses that the Jewish people owned. They took away their bank accounts. But life in Sarajevo was still good. Many people that were Jewish decided to leave. But my father didn't want to leave. My mother pleaded with my father, let's get out of this city somewhere that could be safer. My father said, why should we leave? We didn't do anything wrong. Nobody's going to hurt us. But then after they heard that many other people were leaving, for example, my mother-in-law, what she told me that she did was, one day she went into the street with a sign on herself, furniture for sale. She sold all her furniture in one day, and everything that was in the house and her jewelry. When my father-in-law came home, he asked her, "Why did you do this?" She says, "I want to leave the city." We got the money. They got papers that were false, documents and a passport, and they did leave the city of Sarajevo in the month of May. My father insisted nothing is going to happen. There's no reason to leave. So what they did was they bought sweat. They heard that they were taking the Jews to camps, to work. And my father said, "So I'll go to work in these camps a year or two, and then I'll come back." And they prepared himself. He bought blankets, sweaters, food such as rice, beans, sugar, and things that would not spoil. Got a big knapsack, and he said, "If we have to go, we'll go." Well, we stayed in Sarajevo, and life was hard and harsh, but my father still wouldn't go until one day there was a knock on the door, and they said to my father, you can now go to the work camp." He went willingly. My mother said she wanted to go too. They said, "No, we're not taking you or your child. We're only taking men." They took my father, both of my grandfathers, uncles, and there were about 30, 40 trucks that they rounded up, as many men as they could, and they took them away. My mother stayed in the house alone with me. I was about 4 years old at the time, and she didn't know what to do. But she stayed there, and after 2 days, somebody knocked on the door. And it was a gentleman that introduced himself. He says, "I'm a neighbor. I live a few houses away from you. My wife said she knows you." And he said, "It's not safe for you to stay in your house." My mother said, "Why not?" He said, "Because they're going to take you to the camps where your husband is." My mother said, "Okay." He said, "It's a terrible place. It's a concentration camp. It's a death camp. It's a place where they work people to death. You mustn't stay here." So my mother said she doesn't know what to do. So this gentleman said, "Please come to our house. My wife and I will protect you." My mother wasn't sure what to do, but she had to trust this man. He said his son was a priest. He was a Catholic. We stayed in this house for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, this family said, "You cannot stay in our house any longer. The neighbors will denounce you. They will tell everybody that you're here, hiding here. You have to get out of Sarajevo." My mother remembered that at one time my father told her that if she ever needed money, that he had a business partner and a very trusted colleague that owed him a lot of money, and if she ever needed money, to go to him. My mother never met this man, but she went to his home. She did have the address. It was in a part of the city that she had never been to before, and she realized that this gentleman was a Muslim. When my mother introduced herself, he said, "Yes, your husband was a good friend of mine, and I do owe him a lot of money, and I will honor this debt that I owe to your husband, and I will give it to you." He gave my mother enough money in gold dinars, which is money that is gold coins, and my mother could live with this money for 2 years, believe it or not. It was amazing that this Muslim man was so honest and so generous to my mother. But this man also said to my mother, "You must get out of Sarajevo." My mother said, how am I going to get out of the city? The city's occupied by the Germans. I'm Jewish. He said, I will introduce you to a friend of mine who's also a Muslim. And this friend, this other gentleman who was a Muslim, told my mother that he will help her get false passports and that so that we could leave the city. But we left the city by night. We got on a train, and he told my mother to wear a burqa, to look as if she was a Muslim. Also, he pretended that he was my mother's husband and I was their child. They put me to sleep with some kind of wine, and they said they had to get me to a hospital, and they got me out of the city to another city in Croatia. Over there, we lived in hiding, and after that, we were living in hiding from day to day, constantly pretending that we were not Jews. We were fleeing, and we were on the run for 3 years. Finally, we got caught. We were sent to a place called Rab, which is an island in Croatia. And the reason that they put the Jewish people on this island was this way we couldn't run away. In this island, it was in a detention camp. Now, the detention camp is not a refugee camp. It's a camp where they have people waiting to go to the concentration camp. They didn't have enough trucks, they didn't have enough trains, and they just rounded us up. We lived in barracks in this island of Rob, on bunk beds. And I remember I couldn't understand why is my mother angry with everybody and insisting that I sleep with her. They wanted the children to sleep on the first rung of the bunk bed, the women on the second tier, and the third tier for men. My mother said she's not letting me sleep anywhere that she's not. If I sleep on the floor or on the third tier, I will be with her. And she never let me be out of her sight. She didn't trust anybody. She was always afraid somebody might kidnap me. While we were on these islands, I got sick. And I got pneumonia. There wasn't any penicillin at the time. There weren't hospitals. Mother didn't know what to do. I don't know how in the world she got out of this island. When I asked her, she said, don't ask too many questions. I paid everybody, and everything that I had to do was not legal. But I got out of the island to a city called Split. Split, another beautiful city in Croatia. At that time, Split was a very dangerous place. It was being bombed daily by the Allies, and at nighttime, the German stormtroopers were raiding houses looking for Jewish people. I remember after I got better, and I was again with my mother, we were living in a house with a lady who was Greek Orthodox, and she offered to protect my mother and me and live in her home. And it was very dangerous for anybody to house or hold Jewish people, because if they would be caught, they would be captured and maybe sent to prison, or maybe they would be executed. We lived in this city of Split for 2 years. My mother at that time said to me, she's going to change my name. She said, your name is going to be Maria. I said, why? She says, I like that name better, and I'm going to buy you a nice big present. And she bought me a great big cross with a lot of sparkles on it. I think that's why I always like sparkles. And I wore that cross proudly. My name is Maria, and I was very happy. While we were in hiding in Split, one night, the stormtroopers banged on the door. And they said, there's a woman here that's Jewish that lives here and she has a little girl. The landlady that opened the door said, yes, she does live here, but I didn't know she was Jewish. Her daughter wears a cross, her name is Maria. The stormtrooper said, yes, we know that she's Jewish. Where is she? And the landlady said, oh, this lady, all she does is go out all the time with the soldiers. She's never home. She'll be back in about 2 or 3 days. Come back then. My mother was hiding in the back of the house with me, trembled for hours, and we had to get out of there, but we didn't know what to do. Luckily, for some reason, there was a lady who came the next day. She said, the stormtroopers are after you. You have to get out of this house. My mother said, where are we going to go? This lady said, you have to go into the mountains. Well, what are you talking about? She said, yes, I'm going to take you to my house, and my husband and my 3 sons are in the partisans. The partisans at that time were underground soldiers that were fighting the Nazis. My mother said, I don't know what to do. She didn't know what to do, but she had to trust this woman. The 3 sons and the husband took my mother to the partisans, and they said, we're going to help you to get out of Yugoslavia and get you to Italy. How are you going to do this? My mother said. And they said, we're going to walk. You're going to go with us, with the underground soldiers. We're going to travel at night, and you have to obey everything that we tell you to do. We traveled for 2.5 months over the mountains. Food was very, very dangerous. The reason we traveled at night was because the Germans were looking for us, for the partisans during the day, and the partisans would try to find the Nazi stormtroopers wherever they could. My mother then became friends while we were in the mountains with another lady, and her name was Maria. And one day we had very, very little food. But one day Maria said to my mother, I'm giving you extra bread that she was given. My mother said, why are you giving me this bread? She said, it's for your child. Tomorrow, I have to go on the front lines to fight with the soldiers. And therefore, this lady got extra bread that she gave to us. The next morning, my mother looked for her friend. She didn't return. Where was she? She got caught in the crossfire. She was shot and killed. My mother mourned her all her life. But we had to keep going. And finally, after 2.5 months, we got to the border of Italy. When we got to Italy, somehow the underground soldiers handed us over to some priests. They took us in a church for a day, and they told us that they're going to help us to get to a place where there are many other Jews in Italy. At that time, Italy was already surrendered, and it was an ally of America and the Ally. They were allied. It took another 2 months for us to travel by foot and by horseback with the Italians. The Italian people were very generous and kind. They knew that we were Jewish, and they didn't persecute us, or they gave us food and were eager to help us to get to a safe place where there were other Jewish people. Well, where was this other Jewish place? It was a place called Bari in Italy. Bari had a refugee camp. Now, a refugee camp is a place where people have no place to live, that have lost their homes. There were 10,000 people there. They were all from all different countries, all different religions, strangers, again bunk beds, again my mother fighting. My child is going to sleep with me and not with any other bunk beds. We stayed there for about a month or two, and one day there was a notice. President Roosevelt said that 1,000 Jews can come to America as guests, and people can sign up for it. So my mother signed up. 3,000 people signed up. She said, where is she going to go? She doesn't have any more money. She doesn't know where to go. Wants to get out of Europe. She doesn't know what she's doing. She signed up for it. A couple of weeks later, they were sent to the port to go to America. She couldn't believe it. They accepted only 1,000 people out of the 3,000 that had applied, and that she was accepted. Mainly they vetted everybody. They took doctors and lawyers and teachers. My mother was well-spoken. She spoke 3 languages. Maybe that was one of the reasons that she was accepted. But anyway, we came to Naples, Italy, and we were put on a ship called the Henry Gibbons. Now, the Henry Gibbons ship was a ship that was taking American wounded soldiers from Europe back to the United States. My mother then couldn't believe that there were 29 ships in a fleet that were going to go with us to the United States. We were put in on the boat, and after a day, all of a sudden there was an alarm on the boat. Everybody put on life jackets because there were 30 airplanes that were trying to bomb this fleet. They quickly put a fog over the boats, so this way the Germans couldn't see us. Don't forget, this is 1944. Radar wasn't good then, wasn't available. They couldn't find us, and after 3 hours, the 30 airplanes left because they were running out of fuel. We were still in the Mediterranean Sea, and the next day we heard silence. The motors on the ship stopped. What happened now? They said everybody has to be quiet because we were going to be attacked by submarines and torpedoes. Again, hours of fright of being caught by the German U-boats. Fortunately, they were also afraid of running out of fuel when they lost us, and we wound up at sea, and we were at sea for 2.5 weeks. And everybody on the ship was seasick except 2 people, my mother and I. We never got seasick. When we came to America, the first thing that they did was they put DDT on us to make sure that we didn't have any insects or mice. And they rounded up all the people that were the refugees of the 100,000 people. And they put us on a train, and they took everybody to the same place in Oswego, New York, which is in upstate New York. And we lived in a camp. And we said, why do we have to live in a camp? They said, this is what President Roosevelt said. You're his guests. We were not immigrants. We were guests. Well, people did complain, but still my mother said it was wonderful. We lived in a camp in upstate New York. We ate in a mess hall, but we were safe and there was good food. White bread and jelly was my favorite. When I saw white bread, I can't tell you how grateful I was. We lived there for 1.5 years, but in the meantime, 1945, what happened was there was singing and dancing. Everybody is happy. What is the happiness about? The war's over. I couldn't believe it. My mother said, we're going to go back to Yugoslavia, go back to Sarajevo, go back to the family. But we couldn't go back right away. We had to stay in the camp in the United States. We waited and waited, and suddenly, a couple of weeks later, I see people are crying. What is going on? Why are people sad? We're getting letters. They're getting letters from Europe. This family person died, another family person died. We waited for 6 months, and my mother got a letter from the Red Cross that my father had died in the concentration camp. My mother was so devastated. She didn't tell me anything. For 3 days, somebody took me in their house, and because my mother was upset. I knew exactly what happened, but I never said anything. We never talked about it. And she just said, I don't know what happened. She said that many people in our family died, but she never said anything that my father died. And I always thought, oh, he's probably lost at war, maybe wounded. We lived in Oswego, New York, in the camp for 1.5 years, and then we had to leave the country. Why did we have to leave? Because we were guests. Guests don't stay forever. We had to go to Canada. We were in Canada for 1 hour, we then came back, and then now we were immigrants, and then when we became immigrants, we decided that we can go to Baltimore, Maryland to live. I lived there until I graduated high school. I loved school so much, and one day I wrote an essay about freedom, and I didn't even know that my teacher submitted this essay, and I won an award for it when I was 13 years old. I was educated in Baltimore, got married, and moved to New York with Joseph Gaon. We were married for 29 years, and he passed away. But in that marriage, there are 4 children that I happen to be here right now. Jack, Marty, Renee, the teacher, and Isaac. And I lived a very good life after that with my children. And I have 7 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. And I have to tell you one thing. With all that has happened, my mother and I always said we were the lucky ones. We survived. We got help. And remember that good people are everywhere. First, we were helped by a Catholic family. Then a Muslim family gave us money to survive. And then a Greek Orthodox people help us to cross over and come to safety. And there are good people everywhere. And remember to be trusty and to be grateful and to be gracious. And I'm grateful to be here today and to see all these lovely students here. And my daughter invited me, and I'm grateful that all my children and I are here today.
I just want to say thank you to my mother and to all of you for your patience, for being here. We appreciate all of you, and what you do with this is to live to tell. The courage of the people that survived, the courage of those who helped people survive, the resilience, the strength to adjust under stress and adapt, from both Jews and non-Jews, and the hope. And that is what this performance here is about from our band. It's a song called Hatikva, The Hope.